Hey guys, how's it going? I am really sorry about this delayed ShakeTube video. It will not happen for the last 3 weeks, especially since next week is Macbeth. But just in short, in terms of explanation, November is the month from hell, especially when you're applying to PhD programs. So I've just been very busy, and that's basically my explanation. So this play is about King Lear, who is a pre-Christian king of Britain, and he has three daughters, Goneril, Regan, and Cordelia. And King Lear is getting old, and so he decides basically that he doesn't want to be king anymore. He doesn't want the responsibility. So he decides to divide his kingdom between his three daughters, and he decides that the way he's going to divide it is he has each of them basically flatter him, tell him just how much they love him, and the one who loves him the most will get the biggest chunk, the one who loves him the least will get the smallest chunk. And Goneril and Regan, his two older daughters, wax poetic about how much they love him, but Cordelia, who is the youngest daughter, and who King Lear has always loved the most, can't put her love into words, and King Lear takes offense at this, and so he basically tells her it would have been better if she'd never been born, and banishes her from the kingdom, and tells Goneril and Regan to divide up what would have been her chunk of the kingdom between the two of them. The further drama starts when King Lear wants to continue to be treated like a king. So he has this entourage of knights, and they're very rowdy, and so whenever he goes to visit Goneril or Regan, they get really annoyed at him with these noisy group of knights, and so they start trying to get him to disband some of these knights, to get rid of some of these servants. They're like, "You're not king anymore. We can take care of you," etc. And he doesn't want that. That makes him very upset. And I noticed that the daughters started out with just being like, "Okay, you have 200 knights, why don't you take 100 now? Okay, now you have 100, why don't you actually go down to 50? Okay, why don't you go down to 25 instead? Okay, now how about 10? Okay, actually, no, you don't need any knights, just let us take care of you." So, yeah. And, I can't blame Goneril and Regan necessarily for being annoyed at Lear. I mean, anyone who's been in their apartment next to another apartment where a party's taking place knows how annoying it is to have a big group of rowdy people around when you don't want them there. But I feel like the way that they react, the severity of it, is far out of proportion to the offense. But basically, they end up telling Lear that he cannot stay with either of them if he wants these knights. And they, I think, somehow kind of take captive his knights, and so he's basically left with no one except his fool. And so he just kind of goes nuts and walks out onto a heath and spends a few days there, basically meditating on the indifference of the world, essentially. The second plot line is another family drama, and it's with the Earl of Gloucester and his two sons, Edgar and Edmund. Edgar is his legitimate son, Edmund is his bastard son, and Edmund is kind of resentful over being a bastard, and is kind of screwed up, and is kind of a horrible person. He's kind of another Iago, although unlike Iago, he does sort of have a change of heart at the last minute in this play, although I wouldn't say it redeems him at all, but Edmund decides that he is going to try to supplant Edgar as the heir to the Earl of Gloucester, and then he decides that he's going to try to get rid of the Earl of Gloucester so that he can be the Earl of Gloucester himself. So those are the two big plot points, and one thing you notice about this play is that in terms of plot, out of all of Shakespeare's major tragedies, it really has the most complicated plot, just in terms of what happens. I was thinking of, thinking about what I was going to say, and I was thinking, boy, summarizing the plot of this is going to be hard. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave those premises as they are. I'm sure other booktubers will summarize what happens better than I do. But, like I said, King Lear, when he goes out onto the heath, basically meditates for a long time on the indifference of the universe, basically, and eventually the Earl of Gloucester, the elderly Earl of Gloucester, joins him out there, and he's blinded, and he also meditates on the meaninglessness of the world and the indifference of the gods. And, speaking of the gods, King Lear and the Earl of Gloucester many times throughout this play invoke the name of the gods, which reminded me a lot of when I read classical Greek literature, and people, a lot of times these mortals will be have great misfortune brought down upon them by the whims of some god, and so the mortal will be left lamenting to the gods about what's happened, and I get the sense though that in King Lear, unlike in classical Greek literature, in King Lear, I don't think there are any gods listening. I don't think we're supposed to think that there are any gods listening, or if they are, then they really don't care. And yeah, I saw this play as a long meditation on just the pointlessness of suffering and the meaninglessness of suffering, and yeah, that's not a terribly original idea, but I thought it was a very moving portrayal of that, because, I mean, by the end of the play, you're hoping that King Lear will be sort of redeemed, that he and Cordelia will be able to live together, maybe not happily ever after, since Cordelia's two sisters are dead, and everything that's happened by that point, but still, you're kind of hoping that they can at least salvage this. And even that is taken away from you because of Edmund's scheming. Because actually Edmund, by the end of the play, he doesn't just want to be Earl of Gloucester, he wants to be King of Britain. So, yeah. So I definitely think that of all King Lear's tragedies, that if this is kind of the bleakest of all of them, just in terms of its implications about life and the universe. And I think that's why I liked it. So, anyway, I thought that the dialogue, there weren't that many long, soliloquies in this play, I don't think, but there was a lot of just back and forth dialogue that I thought was, very pregnant with meaning. I could see almost double meanings in a lot of the back and forth dialogue of a lot of what people said, and I thought that was great. And I loved the Fool. I thought the Fool was really interesting. He is the character I really want to go back and just reread his parts, because, I don't know, there was something about him that I thought was interesting. There was this one particular moment where King Lear says something, where King Lear and the Fool are on the heath, and King Lear says something, and it's something very, kind of, nihilistic about the human condition or something, and then the Fool is like, you would have made a good fool. And I don't know, I think the Fool is interesting. I think fools and jesters play an interesting part in Shakespeare's oeuvre, and but yeah, anyway, I think that is what I have to say. So, thank you guys. Bye.